If you run a home service business and you're tired of competing on price, then in this video, we're going to look at how to set yourself apart from the competition, charge premium prices, and never have to haggle with customers again about why they should choose you and why you're superior to the competition. And it comes down to creating a unique mechanism. There's really two types of mechanisms. There's commoditized mechanisms, which is you are the same as everyone else. And because of that, customers instinctively default to who is the cheapest because they have nothing to compare against because they're comparing apples to apples. And then there's unique mechanisms. Unique mechanisms are where you have a distinct system or steps or process or framework or some sort of method that really underpins the whole product or service that you're selling. It explains how you can deliver on its promises and how it sets you apart from everyone else. This is proprietary, innovative, and it's only exclusively available through doing business with you. Doing that sets you up to not have to justify comparison because they can no longer compare something that is fresh, new, unique. As an example, let's say you offer a patented diagnostic system that provides a comprehensive health report to a furnace in under 15 minutes. Well, it's going to be very hard to find somebody that does that. And so that gives you a unique angle that you can use to justify higher prices. Products, services, and unique mechanisms are not your offer. Your unique mechanism often stays the same regardless of how you deliver your offers. So when we look at a commoditized mechanism, what they're doing is they're educating the market on the benefits of regularly servicing their furnace. That's creating demand for that service, which that service is the same as everyone else. When you use a unique mechanism, you're educating them on the benefits of doing business with you specifically, and that creates demand for you and not your competitors. Demand for service versus demand for your service. So here's some examples of a unique mechanism: the green clean formula, the biofit method, the escape design, the rapid check diagnostic systems. You can see if somebody Googles these or looks at a search engine for these, they're probably not going to find anything other than leading directly to you. And that is the goal. One place this gets mixed up is unique selling propositions versus unique mechanisms. Unique selling propositions is when your product or service delivers a unique benefit, whereas a unique mechanism is in the way that you deliver that benefit. The reality is that there's very few unique selling propositions unless you're creating some sort of very innovative new way of doing the business that you do. Examples of some innovative technologies: Netflix versus movie rentals, Uber versus taxis, etc. So unless you are introducing a totally unique and new technology into your industry, you have to find a way to uniquely differentiate yourself. The reason you need to do this is because being different is better than being better when it comes to getting attention. If you're trying to shout louder than everyone else and say you've got a better mousetrap, they are going to tune you out because they see that as the same. You need a new opportunity, something they've never heard before. Curiosity is going to pique their interest. Different is key here. And I see this all the time with home service professionals. They try and differentiate on things like their experience, how long they've been in business, their credentials, their track record. The reality is there's just as many people out there as you that have the same reviews, that have your experience, that have your licensing, your insurance, and your bonding. It's just no longer an effective way to stand out from the noise. If you have a unique mechanism, you have the ability to differentiate while promising the same outcome as competitors. Because if you think about why somebody is going to choose to do business with someone, it's true that things like your experience and your reviews and all that play a huge role into getting chosen. However, when everyone else has the same number as you need something else. You need to introduce a fresh perspective. And this leads us into the level of market sophistication. You have to match what you're talking about to the level that the market is at. And this ties back into being unique and innovative. When you are in a level 1 market, this is the birth of a market. You can make any claim and it will be believable. An example of this is we provide HVAC repair services. When the industry was fresh and new and there wasn't a lot of providers, this was a believable claim and people would buy. But then as they became more sophisticated and more players entered the market, this went to level 2 sophistication, making a bigger claim than your competitors. This is usually when you introduce some sort of speed or delivery or guarantee. So we provide fast and reliable HVAC services in 24 hours. This is now better than the we provide HVAC repair services because you've introduced a time component to it. And now people want that done faster. Now, as the amplified claims get larger and larger, you can no longer, like I said earlier, shout louder. You have to come up with the unique mechanism. And that's where using something like a proprietary name formula or some sort of unique system is going to allow you to not have to shout louder because it's different. So we use the rapid check diagnostic system to help identify issues quickly and accurately. You can see how that is totally different than the other two that we just looked at. But of course, like anything, you're going to get competitors that are going to come in and they're going to rip off your mechanism and they're going to come up with things that are very similar. And so you have to improve the mechanism, just like we improved step 1 to step 2. And this is where we introduce, again, some sort of differentiator. So it could be something else that's added onto your proprietary system. And it's kind of like we're back in stage 2. And then finally, you get to a fully saturated market. And then really it becomes more about who you are and why they're doing business with you specifically. And this is where things like reviews can be the tipping point and moving people over the line. But the reality is in the home service market, getting to this stage, if you have a properly designed unique mechanism, is going to be very rare because the industries are so slow moving. People cling to these outdated tactics where they say, we're the best, we've been in business for 50 years, and things that customers don't really care about. People are selfish and they want what's in it for them. And you telling them why you're better than everyone else based on you as an individual or a business doesn't really benefit them in any way. It simply inflates your own ego. So let's look at some types of unique mechanisms, because it doesn't always have to be something new and innovative. It can be simply something that isn't said. The first one is unspoken mechanisms. And unspoken mechanisms are simply saying something that isn't new or unique. It just isn't said. So an example here, Schlitz beers, back in the day, they simply stated that their bottles were sanitized before going into production. All companies did this, but nobody was saying they did this. You see this all the time where somebody states something that is essentially part of regulation or has to be done, but by saying it, it creates a unique opportunity to stand out. Another one is transubstantiated mechanisms. This word comes from biblical roots. It's essentially turning water into wine, making something ordinary into extraordinary. So essentially, it's just taking a basic process that you do, whether that's basic HVAC filter replacement, and you name it pure flow filtration system. Same thing, new name, sounds unique, sounds interesting, and this can be a really good way to come up with something you can't think of, a creative, unique mechanism. Next is the metaphorical mechanism. This is probably the most likely when you're selling a pure commodity. Very similar to the first one. You're essentially hiding something common behind a nickname or a new name. Good way to do this is to ask yourself, what is this like? Some examples of this, P90X, the muscle confusion system, CrossFit functional movements, Dyson cyclone technology, etc. So what it really comes down to is ultimately you're contrasting your unique mechanism against ordinary options. So when you're creating your unique mechanism, you want to look at your competitors and look at things like, what is the mechanism behind their offer? How does their mechanism or method work? What's positive about their approach? What is negative about their approach, etc. Again, a lot of home service industries don't have anything that sets them apart, but you can find ways to come up with your own mechanism by looking at things like the reviews. You see their trucks. Do they look different? Do they wear uniforms? There's a whole bunch of things. When you look at the industry as a whole and your competitors or the biggest players in the space, think about, why do you think they're the biggest and the best? What makes them different? And how can you take components of that and use what we've just talked about with those mechanisms to create a uniquely differentiated vision of your company that you can use, which essentially becomes the basis of all of your marketing and all of your advertising, all of your messaging, everything. It forms the backbone of how you communicate to your market. And as you're designing this, that's when you're going to ask questions like, what is my approach? How is it going to work? Why are we approaching it this way? You want to have all the answers to these questions, because then it will allow you to fill it out in a very believable way and build a whole process around it, which, like I said, once you have this, it forms almost an entity of its own. It can really help you come up with all sorts of new messages, new angles, the look of your company, the branding, all that sort of thing will be that much easier when you have a fully designed and very clear image of who you are, what you deliver, and how you deliver it. So when it comes to naming your unique mechanism, there's certain ways you want to do this, and it really comes down to understanding how and why your process works, because that's far more important than making it trying to sound over the top, which is just going to come across as overly hypey and salesy, and it's going to lose credibility. You don't want to use overhyped terms. You really want to use things that sound almost scientific. So some examples of overhyped: ultimate, turbo, precision flow. These are not that great when you compare them to things like thermal optimization, airflow regulation, energy modulation. Again, they sound almost scientific. So some words for inspiration: grab this document, look through it. And then what happens is, as I said earlier, once you've built this, it really forms the thesis of how you're leading to the market and really how you're presenting your business as a whole. And now that you've come up with all this, you can put it together into your vision of your company, which is essentially the statement of superiority, your big primary promise or the outcome you deliver, and the unique mechanism. So fill in the blanks. The superior way to primary promise is the unique mechanism. So example, the faster way to maximize energy efficiency is with thermal modulation. Essentially, you're forming like a slogan. And once you have that, it becomes very easy. Anytime you talk to a prospect, you're not trying to spend forever telling them why you're better than competitors. You simply have, this is why we do this. They can't say, oh, well, company XYZ does this as well, because they don't. The customer doesn't know what to say, and it makes it that much easier to justify, especially if you've taken the time to come up with proof points as to why your service is better and is uniquely differentiated. So you're not just talking about thermal modulation, you're also building on that with more unique points, where it gets to the point where it's so stacked with intriguing and different delivery modalities that the customer can no longer have anything even remotely close to compare you against. So if you want to grab this document and really fill out your own unique mechanism and stop trying to compete on price and having to justify why you do what you do, then below this video, you can grab this whole document. There's a whole bunch of other documents that you can look at that will help provide all sorts of different ways to build a highly valuable and uniquely differentiated home service business. Thanks for watching.